Welcome to week 2. We're still figuring out a name for these sessions, but it's where the team here gets together and just reflects on our week, reflects on our learnings, talks about what's going on in the world and within our team and with ourselves, and just gives us kind of some space to stretch our podcast muscles. So Chris is joining us this week. You will get to meet him. He's a blast. But yeah, we'll just dive in. Not a whole lot of structure here. But welcome everyone.
Don't fight for talking.
I know we're recording this, but how's everybody's week
going? I'm just confused because I thought you said it was a test. Are we actually recording this?
Oh yeah, no, we're totally doing this. We're just gonna dive in.
Oh, okay.
You are wicked low though, Nicole.
Damn it.
I think your mic has a gain knob,
now?
Right? There we go. Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. The cars outside of my window sound really great in my headphones too. So I'll just have to deal with that for now.
Yeah,
I live on a main road too.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
There's a setting, there's a button on my interface, but there's a setting on your digital interface that we'll figure out after this that you could flip so you don't hear yourself, because hearing your own voice while you're recording is interesting.
It is.
So this is what it's like to figure out podcasting, everyone. If you're wondering or scared about taking the leap, just do it, figure it out, polish it up. First few episodes, not many people will hear, but maybe it'll be interesting. What we're going to talk a bit about today is company building, but the type of company that we're building is real interesting. It's a venture studio. So we're building a company that'll build companies. We understand how to do that on a product level, from 0 to 1, 1 to 10, or fixing something that was duct taped together and actually building a cohesive experience out of it. So we understand the magic sauce, but the venture side of things is very, very new to us. So there's a lot of learning there, a lot of connecting conversations, but just another instance of taking action on an idea and bringing something to life. Because ideas are a dime a dozen. It is the actuating of that thing or taking action on it that makes all the difference. Chris and I have been arming up to head out to Salt Lake City for Utah Tech Week in the upcoming week. So our episode next week should be a lot more interesting in regards to the conversations we're having. All of this seems so meta. Building a company that builds companies, conversations about conversation.
Yep. We'll be out in Utah, Salt Lake City from January 22nd to the 28th, 2020. Whole week ahead of us.
Yes. It's exciting. There's a lot going on out in Salt Lake City right now, too. It's reading a little bit of research. It's one of the top economies in the U.S. right now. At the beginning of 2024, at least it was back in November of 2023. They've got a lot of movement in the venture space as well. The money's being put to good use in companies that are innovating or spinning up in pretty much every industry. There are a few highlight industries that we'll dip into. Interesting stuff going on with aerospace out there as well. Actually, one of the companies that we're going to be helping in a few different ways decided to join us out there. One of their advisors was already going, and the founders hopped on board, and he'll be out there to start to plug into that community. So yeah, a lot of happening is happening.
Do you know why Salt Lake City is like a hot city now?
I actually couldn't tell you. I'm gonna do a quick Google search to see if we could bring something up. But there's a lot of venture. There's a lot of connectors. It's not too far from Silicon Valley. But I'll give that a look up. So, Chris, what's been on your mind this week? What's something that you've learned or are going through? You've had a couple of interesting actions that you've taken lately.
Yeah. So, big takeaway this week after talking to a bunch of folks, getting introduced to some new projects, talking about the space, is authenticity. Had a great conversation with a C-level marketer just the other day, in terms of building your own personal brand. And it seems more imperative than ever as we enter the current age of AI. And it seems like a very roundabout thing because we've been only in the age of the internet for so long, and we've really deconstructed kind of our own social interactions, whether it be in person, dating, or promoting ourselves. And now we have this wave of generative AI, ChatGPT, Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, and we can't tell what's real anymore. And talking to just some kids, late teens, early 20s, in my life, whether it be tutoring or just friends and family, they're not interested in certain activities anymore, or meeting people online, or how they interact with influencers because everything is so fake. It's more evident that it's fake. Things like Photoshop have been around for decades, uh, and airbrushing techniques have really poisoned our self-image. But at the same time, it was very inaccessible. Um, Nicole and I have probably spent thousands of hours mastering Photoshop uh, between the two of us. And now I don't need thousands of hours to fix up my profile, generate something from scratch. Um, and I was having a conversation with my little cousin, um, and even myself. I think I've had more social interaction in person with new people in the last year than I've had the last decade. Everything I've done is I'm a digital nomad.
Mm.
And so circling back, the irony is AI is forcing us to be more authentic because the human capital of our own brand is the only thing we have left. So my big takeaway this week is, as we're building this company, as I'm promoting myself online, is I shouldn't be crafting cringy and marketing-tastic LinkedIn posts, but instead I should be putting my perspective out in the world in a way that is the same as I'm having a conversation with another human being. Because at the end of the day, that's the thing that we still pick up on as human beings, is that interaction between ourselves. And come hell or high water, that is what I think is going to win out.
Even more so now than ever, right? Especially with the oversaturation. I had a friend of mine who's in marketing who was talking about the shift from, we should actually bring her onto the show, Lori, who was talking about the shift from content creation. The fact that it's getting to a point where content's no longer king because the content generation is happening at such a mass scale. And it's not that everybody's doing it and from their own perspective, and the market's being flooded with a bunch of uniqueness and new perspectives, but they're tools that everybody has access to now. So it's almost like the personal voice is getting lost. The human voice is getting lost.
To quickly add to that, there's a quote from David C. Evans, author of Bottlenecks, Aligning UX Design and User Psychology. He has a little quip in there that says, which I've held on to since my early days as a UX professional: content is king, but content is also human.
Love that. And that's one thing that I picked up, and I think I wrote my first official like blog or newsletter entry the other day, because that's what I've been focused on doing with the amount of content that I've personally been generating. Just have a starting point and a perspective. I put out the bullet points and I kind of flesh out an idea, run it through GPT, see what comes out. What were the things that I didn't consider? What's a little bit more substance that this is added to that hopefully it's more value, right? Because it's more information. And then I run it through my own filter again. And then hand it off to Nicole to figure out what to do with. And then she's kind of been going through that same process. Would love to hear how it's been working for you. But it got to a point where I was just like, what's the point of the content that we're putting out, right? It's to add value. And I think we can get it to that point through a process like this. It's very helpful. But if the point is to share a perspective, then using tools like GPT, you're going to fall short every time. So that's where it was really refreshing. It was like, I don't know, one in the morning or something. I picked it up on Substack, and I whipped something together. I can't even tell you what it's about right now. But it was about, like, I know there was about like taking action and making a decision to put something out in the world. And that just felt good being a part of the creation process.
Yeah, I'm feeling that too, because I feel like within all these tools that social media gives us to share, I'm finding resistance in feeling like I have to fit those molds within the limits that those tools give me. And I feel like on a level that everyone has access to these tools and that we have the ability to share it with other people, that it's putting creativity into these boxes and expression into these boxes where it's making me feel like I fully can't express myself. And to touch on your example that you just gave, Andrew, where within LinkedIn, the purpose becomes, okay, I have 3,000 characters to work with. How can I provide a bunch of value to people and convince them that I know what we're talking about, because we want them to like it, we want them to comment on it, we want them to follow us. And getting caught up in that feels like it's stunting me before I even get started. And even when I think of like Instagram and the whole idea of being able to share photos with people, is every photo that like I'm taking in the back of my mind like, oh, is this shareable or not? You know, to start curating. But why does like my brain immediately go to that, where why can't I just take the photo? Why can't I? Because I feel like then there's all these other types of things where I'm like, oh, people wouldn't care about that.
Almost gets you to ask the question, what are you creating the photo for, or what are you capturing this for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you're just like, why can't it just be for me? Like,
Yeah.
if I go on like a trip with my family, why does it not cross my mind anymore that I just want those photos to share with my other family? And it just doesn't do it justice to put into an Instagram post, because it's not gonna like reach the audience that like is fully gonna understand what that like trip meant to me.
Yeah.
Because they don't know those people. And I'm just seeing how it's changing the way that people relate to content as well.
I feel the same way, actually. I've been going through like a detox on social media. I used to post stories all the time. Now I would say like a solid 6 months, I haven't been posting anything, and I've been making it a point that whatever I looked at, I rather enjoy with my eyes and just have that memory and just take a look. And if for whatever reason I feel like, oh, I really want to remember these, because who knows, I might forget it, I just take the picture, but I just keep it in my phone and I don't post it anywhere. And I don't care about sharing it with anyone. And I don't care if people think that I don't have a life or I'm not doing anything, because at the end of the day, it's about me, right? And you don't have to prove anything to anyone if you're doing something or not. And I feel like social media is like trying to show the status or what you're doing or where you're at or what restaurant did you go to or what do you order, or what kind of food you're eating, or even how you dress. So I'm like at that point that I'm like, I don't care. I don't want any of these. And I like sometimes even people message me and I will take a week to get back to them. And it's like, I feel that there's so much fake stuff out there that why am I even going to try? I know I'm not at that level, nor I want to be, because that's not who I am. So it's been feeling refreshing.
Yeah, one thing that's been freeing to me is very much like Garo. Haven't really been on LinkedIn, definitely, but social media for the sake of social media too much. And it's been really nice where when I am out somewhere doing something and I capture an image, it is for me. Now I'm a digital hoarder, so I'm adding to my pile of things that that's a whole other topic of conversation that I could probably go in and dust off some shelves, but the memories are there, right? And I do have kind of a poor memory, so I'll capture something for the sake of capturing something, but I'm bad at taking selfies or capturing moments of friends, which I'd like to. But like me, even as a photographer, I haven't been bringing my camera as much, but what I love about taking photos is creating an image. Very different from like, taking a picture of a thing for some outcome or some engagement or something like that. But now that we're in this position, kind of like what Chris was speaking to earlier, where it's advantageous to create a brand and share a perspective, not create a persona or perspective or anything, but just vocalize and communicate what our perspective is, because now we're going to be in a position of decision making that actually has true influence and impact. There is value in sharing that perspective, and it gets to the point where it's like, oh, it's so draining and exhausting now to have to think about creating content to try to communicate this perspective that just naturally comes out in conversations like these, or in meetings where we're meeting new people, or in instances where we're problem solving with the people that we're working with. It has shifted weight for that to feel very burdensome.
One of the great failures of the last 20 some years that professionals, doctors, psychologists have really honed in on is social media, this photo book effect of our displays of status and liveliness have created this chasm and this depression across our generation, our social cohort, which seemingly kids now are rejecting, which is great. Hopefully, all of the weirdness that we've been experiencing when we talk about social anxiety, body image issues, is just a blip in our historical record that we can look back on this and go like, oh, that was a bad idea. But luckily, it was a short-lived idea. And it sucks for everyone that had to grow up, actually become adults through this period of time, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that we're not seeing as many kids basically splay themselves on social media, there are still tons, right? As a volume, I think it's still absurd. But percentage-wise of effort, I'm seeing people just like completely tune out of, they're like, oh, I'll never be a TikTok star. Great. That's a terrible idea. Anyway, game streamers, how many friends you have on MySpace.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was going to say, Chris. Like, is it starting to shift? So like it's a smaller percentage, or are they just on platforms we're not aware of anymore?
No, I don't think so, because I've been on those other platforms for business reasons, one or another. Talking to folks at ByteDance, in China and such. It's really about the shift in the behavior of how people are utilizing those platforms.
That's good.
Um, I had a good high school friend. He had his third kid a couple of years ago, and by a couple of years ago, I mean a couple of years plus 1 year, because he didn't post about it until like his third kid's 1 year birthday. It's like, by the way, I have another kid. By the way, he's one. No one needed to know. No one. It's
Yeah,
like it's his
exactly.
life, and I'm not close enough where I would have been. It would have just been another like, another dopamine hit. It was meaningless. Like, I'm happy for the other individual, but it's not, a in-depth part of my life that I need to be part of.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own story, their own expression. Um, and to Nicole's point, we are people who are creatives by nature in one way, or more intimate. Society feels that we are more creatives than uh, others in our categorical bucket, right?
Yeah.
And to that, we create a lot and we put it a lot into the world. So much so that everything that we do is scrutinized, like, oh, what is it for? Well, I'm expressing myself. One of my personal long held projects that I'm slowly turning on is a video game. And almost universally, I go to bars or meetups, get events. One of the first questions people ask when I explain to them the game concept is, do you think it'll sell?
Mm,
I don't care. Do you write poetry in your free time? Do you think that'll sell? No, it's for you. Do you
of
take
course it will.
photography for yourself? Do you write your own? People write their own songs, their own
Yeah,
letters, their
it's
own
true.
books. Is a biography meant to be sold, or is it meant to capture your experience here on this earth
Yeah,
or in
exactly.
this life, right? A video game is just the way I feel like I'm most suited to expressing my story. It just happens to be the medium that I'm choosing, and I don't care that it doesn't sell. I'll give it away for free. I'll give away the source code, the assets, everything. Why? Because I just want it out there. But everyone's like, "Oh, you're doing yourself a disservice by not trying to make money." I was like, "Who cares?"
Mm,
There's my LinkedIn post for next week. I don't care.
I think maybe we're in a society that tries to monetize everything. That if you don't monetize whatever it is that you're producing, then they perceive you as a nobody or as a loser. Or why are you even doing that if it's not benefiting you? Might not be benefiting you monetarily, but it's fulfilling you in other aspects of your life that might be even more important than money. But people are so attached to that they're like, oh, what's the purpose of it?
it's almost like they're associating the value of the thing to the ability to monetize it. So how do we monetize this podcast?
I don't care. That's not my problem. Why do anyone that we get onto our podcast seemingly care, right?
Mm,
Andrew and I have been on conversations sourcing people for our podcast, or the main podcast, for a good while, and we get some big names who seemingly have nothing to promote.
yep.
They're like, yeah, we'll help you out. We're nobodies right now, which is great. And they still go like, yeah, I have a book, I have like a TV show come, I don't, and they're like, but I'll give you an hour and a half of my day, plus a couple of hours of back and forth preamble for writing emails. And we're like, we just started.
Yeah, there's something
People like
nice.
expressing the most valuable people in my professional life are the people that just care to express themselves come hell or high water.
Exactly. Now I was going to say there's something nice about the shared experience of connecting. And then if that just so happens on a public channel where it can add value to an audience, there seems to be a willingness and an interest in doing that, which is great.
Is it me or seems like everyone is like a little low today? Is it the weather?
Energy
It's
level?
always the weather in Seattle, thank you very much. Even when it's sunny, you're like, it could be brighter. It's an incredibly warm 8 degrees Celsius right now, so I'm very thankful. But
We have our little space heater turned on down here in chilly Orlando, Florida. It was like 43 outside this morning Fahrenheit.
how is it colder in Florida, in Orlando, Florida, than
We're catching that
Seattle?
front that came through, sweeps in at a diagonal. We get the
Yeah,
butt end of it. I think it's appropriate that we were contemplating the name for like these sessions, and this one landed on decompress and reflect, because it's very much what I feel about today and this week. That's why I'm low energy. I know that we're going out to Salt Lake coming up. Excuse me. But before we went, I had the brilliant idea of, oh, cool, we're talking to a bunch of GPs and VCs and investors, and we're also talking to a bunch of startups and talking to a bunch of people doing interesting things. And I was like, I'm going to bring as many people as I can onto my calendar the week
acronyms.
before. Not going to get into that conversation right now. We can dive into it after. But I was thinking I'm going to bring as much as I can onto my calendar the week before, so that maybe there's a thread that I could pull on or value that I can add to the individuals I speak to, and also to the individuals that we meet out in Salt Lake. So I've had back-to-back meetings for 5 days straight, and it has been insane. So yeah, definitely decompressing and trying to take it a little bit slower today and tomorrow.
I gotta say, it's insane the amount of meetings that you're having, but at the same time, I'm surprised at the amount of people that they just want to meet with you guys. And like Chris said, we're nobodies right now. It's insane to me the amount of people that are so like such high caliber people that they just want to talk to you, and is there anything I can help you with? They just want to have that conversation, and that's really refreshing and nice to see, especially because I personally tend to think that very successful people that they have reached specific status or something, they tend to be very curt, and they be very like, okay, you're in that level. When you reach me, we can talk. But it's been nice to see that a lot of people are just open.
It's better now than it was a decade ago. This is not my first start at rodeo. I've certainly met my fair share of people. Um, and it really depends on the industry, and it feels like
That too.
we've geared ourselves to find the people who are like us in the way that we venture out into the world. If we were doing just sales or standard enterprisey stuff, we're going to find more curt people. We've met a couple. Just to be clear, for those listening, it's not like we haven't met people who are like, no, you're not ready for us. You're immature, or we don't want to talk to you, right? But those are also the type of people we expected from big bankers, people who want to see um, detailed reports on our strategy, our deck, exactly whomever and every which way, and then we turn around where we find enthusiasm from the people they invest in who go like, yeah, we love you guys. You do nothing yet, but we love the spirit. And you're like, oh, the people that the banks believe in us. I'll take that. I'll take that win, right?
Absolutely.
It's nice, I gotta say. And I gotta say, like, from a professional experience myself, like, I have interacted with a lot of people that they're like, oh, you'll never reach these, or you're not ready for it, or see in another lifetime, it will never happen for you. And now seeing you guys interact with like 10 times bigger people, I'm like, what were these people thinking?
There's like a couple steps down, and a level of ego that's wrapped up in some perspectives that people have, and that's fine. I think it's a mixture of like projection, maybe it's a mixture of like a little bit of trauma, like self-protection. Like Chris was saying, it kind of depends on the industry too, because like when I was in the marketing, like self-marketing, entrepreneurial, make a blog, join an MLM, build a company for yourself sort of thing. There was this mix of, yeah, sure, we'll help you, but also we make, $300,000 a month and we don't have time to talk to you because you're not at that level sort of thing. And like Chris was saying too, there's this mixture of, so that's the sense of ego, and then there's also this mixture of people that where I think it comes from the people that are like, oh, you're too small, you're not ready. That's fine, and those are great reality checks, right? Because then we can identify the instances and the criteria that they're looking for. But that's what they have in their mind, right? They have a list of criteria that they're looking to meet for an engagement as an outcome, which is great. It's just we don't always bring that intention into the relationships that we're starting right now because we're new here. So we're intending to meet people, we're intending to learn, we're intending to add value, we're intending to form these like organic, authentic relationships. And not everybody wants that, right? Some people are just like, hey, I talk to 1,000 people a week. Like what can we do together? If we can't do anything together yet, like come back when we can. And that's their filter. And they decompress in a different way on Saturdays. Maybe talking on their own podcast about 1,000 people that aren't ready for doing business. But it's still an awesome reflection. But like even a week ago, I had a conversation with somebody that built their own, I'd say, empire, venture empire, and they got a ton of arms and they're doing a ton of money, and their revenue is great, their infrastructure is great, they're scaling great, they got a diversity, and they're exploring new things too. And he's like, you're too small for us, but also I'd love to give you feedback along the way. And we just talked this week on some other venture that they're doing completely unrelated to VC or like startups specifically. It's like insurance and personal wealth. And we hopped on a call and he's like, tell me what you think. How do you think we might be able to engage this in a different way or put this out into the world? What are some creative applications of this? Because this is new to him. So he's excited and creating these new avenues and exploring them because he's a founder at heart, right? So it's still really cool, the people that there are instances in which you might not be ready to engage at a certain level, but there's still value in conversing and collaborating and just connecting. It's nice.
I think what's most exciting also for me throughout this process is to realize like stories that I've told myself that's held me back from putting myself out there. So even like I resonate with what Carolina's saying on like being met with a lot of no's, being met with a lot of opposite of what we're receiving now. And there is still, people that aren't receptive, but not focusing on those on those interactions and focusing on like the opposite and telling the stories in my brain that like people are nice and like they're cool and they want to talk to you and help and like they need help too, and it's just nice and refreshing. And I think that when you put that energy out there, that's the type of energy that you're going to attract as well. Because I know all of us, we're all nice people and we want to help others. So when you show up as that, other people are going to show up as well.
Completely agree with that. It's like I was telling Andrew last night, I was like, I'm surprised the amount of people that are just like so high that you are actually starting to form friendships with, and like they're like, oh, just don't text me, or I mean, don't message me on LinkedIn. This is my number. Call me, or this is my direct number. Like just and exchanging pictures and things like that. And I'm like, man, I would have never thought that you can get to that level so fast. But it's cool, it's refreshing, and it's nice to see something like that is actually happening, and that probably a lot of people that fake they're things you can see. You're not vibrating at the same energy. And like Nicole says, like you attract what you put out there, right? Granted, not everything is going to be amazing. You're not going to encounter like the best people in the world all the time. That's not possible. But it's really nice to see that that's the majority we're getting right now.
I heard a quote this week that I think kind of contributes to that as well, which is your frequency is what you will frequently see. But yeah, dig it. So this is what it's like to hang out with a group of friends, everybody. If you forgot what it's like to hang out in person or remote, please feel free to hop on a call with those you love and that inspire you or you collaborate with. It's okay if there's a little bit of silence. Just hang out with each other, talk to each other, reflect on stuff. It's healthy. We need more of that. More spaces to do that without the either the self stories or the societal stories saying like you need to bring something or of value, or you need to sell something, or you need to prove yourself, or like you need a reason for being here in the room and talking. Well, if we just want to hang out and connect.
I agree. I'm deconstructing in myself that I have to like, for me to get not what I want, but what, like, for me to feel like I deserve something, it feels like I have to do a bunch of work to get there.
And I think Nicole, like we talk about these several times. Like for me, I think it's been ingrained. Like even when I grew up, if you didn't work hard for it, you didn't deserve it. It's something that is so difficult that even nowadays I'm working so hard to try to not associate with it, because I feel like sometimes I make my life more difficult just because that's what my belief is, and I think that if I don't work hard for it, I just don't deserve it. But it's nice to see that you don't actually have to work hard for it. Like sometimes it just presents itself, and might as well take the opportunity that maybe later on you might regret that you didn't.
And hard work definitely means different things to different groups. I was having a conversation with my neighbor maybe 5 or 6 years ago. His dot not 5 or 6 years ago, 3 years ago. Wow, time. So during COVID, everyone's at home and jack all is being done, right, physically. His daughters come knock on our door and go like, hey, we're just going around the neighborhood and seeing if anyone wants anything done. Cleaning the house, cutting the grass, doing what the kind of our generation would have been doing in terms of like newspaper route. My father remarked, why are they working and not studying? And then we talked to the neighbor and he basically said, it's good, hard work is good for their character. And then my father retorted, I would be ashamed if my son was working at this age. I have failed as a parent. It is a different perspective on what we should be doing, and at the end of the day, we're just working hard, right? Or we are working to improve ourselves. It is not right or wrong, but is the lens in which we form for ourselves. And the problem is when we think we're not working hard. Because I can easily see these little girls when they enter adulthood, they're like, oh, we're not busting our butts. We're not working 3 jobs, right? I haven't put in my due. So therefore, I feel like I haven't earned it. Is based in this framework that they've constructed for themselves culturally, which is different than what I have. And I can tell you that I've had my own share of anxieties or self-doubt based on how much I've worked, because I haven't actually overburdened myself with hours of work. Instead, I've crammed away at thought-based work. right? Like I'll put in my 9 to 5 at a desk job, and then it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything physical. But in software and tech, no one gives you any time to self-study, unlike other
Yeah.
engineering trades. So what? I'm now reading and practicing 3 hours a day on top of my normal day job as an IC just to keep current. But then people will say you haven't actually worked. But it's that
Mm-hmm.
framework. I'm never going to judge someone else in terms of like, did they do the right thing in terms of their effort level? Because we're all just working at the end of the day towards a goal. What I will tell them is you can deconstruct your lens to not feel like you haven't hit that target.
Mm.
We're all working hard on this call in different ways. I know it. Um, the type of work that we're doing is very distinct from each other, right? But none of us here are like, oh, and you should be working on this deliverable instead, right? He didn't deliver this week, therefore he didn't do anything.
Yeah,
We're
it's a real
pushing
weird
the
space
needle.
to be in. Sorry?
We're moving the needle.
Yeah, and I
We're
think
all
that's what
moving the
matters.
needle. Every kid, every man, every woman, every child, every individual, right?
I think one thing that helps with that too is to have a way to measure progress, not success. Just be clear on where you want to head. And as long as you take some sort of action toward that every single day, even if it's just fractional. Let's say you were putting off writing down this crazy idea that you had. That's a step forward. But in that same regard, I think hustle culture hasn't been too too healthy for uh, the societal lenses. Very much what we were talking about earlier. Um, and then there's also, if you do have a perception within yourself that you need to be constantly working or working hard, whether it's physical or mental or just whatever effort that it is to push forward, you need to personally feel there's effort in it. There's a huge difference between being busy and being like taking a step forward and moving the needle. I don't even want to say productive because there's a whole thing on toxic productivity that it's real easy to feel busy. It doesn't mean that you're doing something worth doing or moving in the direction that's going to have some sort of impact to the outcome that you want. Right? Good stuff. So what do we take from this? What did we learn, or what's something that we want to apply to next week? I'd say my thing, especially just I'm going to cheat and use this last topic because it's easier, but it's top of mind, and I think it's really important for us to do. We've already spoken about it a little bit, but have focused, deliberate, not outcomes, but actions that we'd like to take, because that will contribute to us moving the needle forward. So there is a certain uh, types of people that we want to engage with, to add value to, and to learn from, and just to start building relationships with. There's certain topics of information that we want to put out into the world and with these communities, but also receive back from. So there's a couple questions that we have and some insights that we have in the back of our mind. And then there's people that we've been connecting with throughout our journey, that we would like to connect with others to help move them forward in their journey. So Chris and I have already spoken about this. We're going to jot those 3 categories of things down in a Notion. So we're just putting it in a place. So our tactical action is to consolidate that information so that if we're in a conversation, 1, we can take contextual notes and follow up. Secondly, we can quickly reference something that we might otherwise be like, oh, there was this one thing, there's this person that I spoke to that would be great for you to talk about. I can't think of their name right now. So to avert those conversations in the moment, we're gonna consolidate that information in one place. That's the actionable item that I'm gonna take. How about y'all?
I'm going to clear my mind for Utah and hit the ground running, and then I'll learn to walk.
I like that.
My week next week will feel different than you guys because I'll be at home. And I think something that I want to get better at is I've totally been like neglecting putting my tasks into Notion. I've just been putting everything on sticky notes, or like I have my Google task and I'm like, oh, well, I'm the one that has to do this. So I'm just gonna not like, no one else needs to know. Like, I already know that I have to do this. I don't need to put it into Notion. But I think for myself personally, I've just fallen off of updating the Notion, and there's just like so much stuff that needs to get cleared out. And we, again, also to what Andrew was saying, like having more clear deliverables and frameworks and documenting what we've been learning, because I feel like I'm a person, and I think that a lot of people can relate to this, that I learn from, I don't like the word failure, but like things that didn't work well. I learn the most from when I can reflect back on those. So when these new situations come up, that even though they're new and each situation is new and different, there's of course similar things are going to go on from, finding a client, talking to them, proving our value, them wanting to work with us in contract and an agreement, and then working with them. What along that process is like, okay, we're doing good here. And then what along that process where we're like, okay, well, this happened the last time. Why don't we talk about what we could improve on the next time so we don't feel this way? I know that I attended the same meeting that Andrew shared on that sales call, that sales training call. That, what was it, on Wednesday or Thursday?
Yeah, it was like Sales Dojo or something like that.
Yeah.
We had a professional in the sales industry that wanted to add value to one of the communities that we're in. So they came on and gave a free training. It was really nice.
Yeah. And I've been reflecting on how I show up within that space of immediately tending to the other person and their needs instead of being like, this is my price and my value and what I bring, not going to budge.
Yeah, there is some like negotiation, and you could strategize on like just in sales process. Every business, every person is different. But what Nicole's referring to is somebody shared their story of an experience where they understood the individual that was coming to them was price sensitive, is how they referred to them. And so she came in at like a discount, like very, very low price discount. And that individual still reacted the way that she was trying to avoid, which is like, whoa, this is way too much for me. And so the facilitator was asking like, why, I have an idea of why you did that, and had asked her like what was her intention of doing that. And it was from a place of empathy, right? But as service providers, knowing that we have value to add to the world, that might just be a not now situation, and that's okay. So it's good.
I think for me this week, what I'm thinking with myself actually is realizing that sometimes it's okay to not know everything. Not sometimes, it's okay to not know everything. And actually, I was able to validate that a lot of people are out there in a kind of state of like fake it till you make it. But it made me feel Like I was like almost questioning myself because I'm always like, oh, I don't know it. I don't know this. I don't know this. And I need to learn it before I do this other thing, right? But it's okay to learn along the way. You don't need to know everything before you have to do something. Otherwise, no one would do anything, right? Because we're constantly learning about new stuff. But there's so many people out there that are doing stuff that I'm like, what? This, how do you think about this? And they get so much validation. So I'm like, I need to start trusting myself more and realizing that it's okay that I don't know all the things that I think I should know, because a lot of people out there that probably not at the same level are doing 10 times better.
Yeah, I love that. And there's also a little bit of cringiness associated with the fake it till you make it. And to circle all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, I think we're starting to see that disintegrate a little bit, where authenticity is genuinely starting to be valued more. And in the VC space, there is no room for bullshitting. Sorry for the language, but like just utterly lying outright is, one, unethical in general. We don't have a place for it, and that's one thing I love about this group is the transparency, the fact that we have a safe space to talk to each other just internally. But because we're coming from a place where we're like, hey, we're new here. Here's where we're really good, and we are really, really, really good at that. We know our stuff, and it resonates with people, right? And I think that's what's opened so many doors for us, and what leads to such engaging conversations with pretty high caliber individuals and pretty accomplished individuals. And the fact that we are 100% comfortable in our skin of saying, this is what we want to learn and where we want to learn, because we don't know much. And that's where we're going to put the experts in place that do know that. We want to enable people with superpowers to really excel. That's what we've done with curating this team that we've got here, which is awesome. But just stepping forward and being true to yourself and being like, you know what? I don't know. I am learning. I know these other things that are a pretty good combination of a skill set. So this is how I think I can approach a problem. There's something very refreshing and very deeply resonant about that approach in the world in general. So I guess a lesson that I would give to you, fellow listener, is don't, even if it's a perceived white lie, just don't lie to the world around you. But I think more importantly, spend some time with yourself and ask yourself, are you telling yourself any of those white lies? Like, do you need to create a space where you need to be a little bit more honest with yourself and practice that a little bit more? And know that it's okay to bring that into the world, right? It's okay to learn. And if you come from a space, one thing that we are living right now is if you approach conversations and you come into a space where you're like, hey, I want to learn, I got some value to exchange and to add, people will meet you where you're at and offer so much more than you could have ever imagined and accelerate where you want to get to. But be honest with the world around you. Be transparent. It's not only refreshing, it's becoming the standard, which is amazing that we're getting to that point. But I think what's more important than anything, be honest with yourself so that you can show up for yourself authentically. I've gotten a lot of value from doing that, at least. It's been nice.
Yes, I've had to address that in myself, that it's incredibly more vulnerable to be yourself. And like the reason why we lie is because we're afraid of being ourselves, and we think it won't hurt as badly if people, reject the lie instead of rejecting genuinely who we are. And I don't want to live like that anymore. And I think that it's just more badass to be yourself. I used to think it was not like a weakness, but like when people were like super vulnerable, I just wasn't able to meet them in that space because I didn't want to be judged for my vulnerability. And now I'm like, whoa, that's pretty freaking cool.
That used to be me actually for the longest time. I could go like I swear years without crying. That used to be me, and I would internally judge the people that would show their emotions, and I'll be like, "Why are you being so weak?" or "Why are you showing this and doing that?" Until I met Mr. Sensitivity, and then completely changed my life. And now I think I even tear up like when I watch a movie or something, a scene that is like kind of sweet. I'm like, and then I like sometimes I'm like, is this even me? Like I used to be like completely the opposite of this, and now I'm like very in tune with my feelings, I would say. And I'm not afraid of repress them at all.
You mean that you don't repress them? You said you're not afraid of.
Thank you for catching that. I don't care. I don't care if people see me crying or anything it is. Like, this is who I am. And I'm doing it for myself because at the end of the day, like, whenever I show my emotions, it's like so refreshing inside of me. And it's good to know that I'm like, I don't care if you think that I'm a sensitive person or I'm crying for something stupid. That's on you. This is helping me.
Or even in the regard of now us showing up in this space, that like we could be, by us being ourselves, creates safety for another person to be themselves. And yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Same. Just thought of a great analogy.
Say it.
So it's kind of like a fart. Being emotionally vulnerable can be equated to this situation. If you hold it in, it's very uncomfortable. It alters your emotions, might make it not nice to be around you. And if you just relax and let it go, it'll be uncomfortable for a minute, but afterward, everybody else will be more comfortable with themselves and with each other.
I don't know what elevator you've ever been in, but not mine. I'll hold
Usually,
that
if it
sucker to the
smells
100th
bad,
floor.
people are uncomfortable.
For a moment.
Yeah, true. You gotta break the ice somehow.
I'd rather than break the ice with a fart, though.
Some global warming level fart right there. Breaks the ice. So that's a wrap.
I was just about to say.
If anything, take the fart idea.
Express yourself. All right. Thanks for joining us this week, everyone. Reflect on your week. Go through something that you've learned, something that you've learned from. Figure out a way to jot it down, make it actionable to take that forward into the week ahead. Sharpen your skill set through self-reflection. Feel free to join us next week from Salt Lake City. It'll be probably the week after that. But anyway, hope you all enjoy your morning, day, evening, weekend, month, and year. Happy 2024. Catch you on the inside.